For our first guest, we have a speaker that believes that anyone, anywhere in the world, can become a biodiversity builder. This mission-driven entrepreneur is known for her leadership in fostering public engagement and collective action, something I hope you agree we need a lot of in 2024. From her first project in 2019 in Beirut, her company creates green infrastructure and reimagines the urban experiences. I cannot think of a better person to invite us to open our session. Please welcome founder and CEO of SUGi, Elise, and your keynote speaker today. Put your hands together.
Hi, everyone, and good evening. So our cities are built upon ancient forests, and SUGi's mission is to bring them back. Let me see if that works. There we go. Oops. There. So, hi. Living in San Francisco, I would escape the city and find respite in the redwoods. I just loved spending time in those ancestral forests. And I thought, for me, that sensation of reconnecting with the wild, I thought it was fascinating. And as I moved back to Europe, I missed those forests. And I realized at that point I wanted to do something positively impactful. I wanted to find and contribute to an organization that could leverage the power of wild nature, and that would also bring hope and relief to communities. Now, as I couldn't find it, that is how SUGi was born. SUGi is anchored around three main pillars: biodiversity, well-being, and climate resilience. Our solution is based upon the Miyawaki method. You might have heard of it. We create ultra-dense, biodiverse pockets of forest, native species only, and the key is to plant densely. So these pockets, imagine me here on stage. That would be like 100 trees and shrubs. I would be standing between the birds and the bees. On minimal space, we can create maximum diversity. Now, they're really amazing. They cool the air, they clean the air, they act like sponges. We'll look at concrete examples in a second. But before we go there, I just, want to put the numbers out there. We started with one pocket forest in Beirut. And just to put things in perspective, 4 years ago, we had a booth here at ChangeNOW. Well, actually, it was at the Grand Palais. And it was a team of two. It was me and Daniel. We had 7 forests created, co-founded. We had 5 forest makers. And so today, to have this network of 28 forest makers around the world, these expert Miyawaki forest makers, and also through our brand partnerships, we were able to evolve from a grassroots movement into a leading voice around urban rewilding. Now, let's look at some concrete examples of how the method works. There we go. So this is a great example. Well, I want to go one back there. So first, I want to show you sizes. We plant any size. This is really like a good range in the 200 projects that we currently almost have. It's like a 10 square meter, 1,000 square meter, and a 10,000. Now, 10 square meters, imagine this, after the blast in Beirut, a lot of damage done, and how can we create the playfulness on the playgrounds? So we integrated these really small pockets of green. We'll talk more about it. 1,000 square meters, this was a parking lot. And Magdalena, our forest maker in Chile, she called us and she said, look, Elise, the soil dreams of being a forest. And when somebody says that to me, I'm like, yes, let's do this. So this is in not even 2 years, a dense wild forest. The 10,000 one is the biggest one in Europe and London, and the UK, So it's embarking in Dagenham, and it's 30,000 trees. Imagine the density there in a place where there's almost no tree cover. Looking at those really small ones, right? This is the beauty of it. Like on any space, deep paving, we can rewild it, and also that idea of like that minimal space creates that maximum diversity. That's something really speaks to us. The idea of like heavy stormwater. Where does the water run through today in our cities where it's concrete on concrete? Well, these act as sponges, right? Beautiful example in Pakistan, country where there's a lot of there's a lot of like desertification. So how do you go against that? So we worked with our forest maker Shahzad there to really like revitalize the park. The steps of the method. Again, you might have heard of it. The method itself is really scientific. It starts with the soil. We really have to bring back the natural ingredients to our soils. Soils in cities are very deprived of any life. Once that is done, we plant densely. And this is a great example from top. It's like 3 trees per square meter. So imagine, we mulch heavily, and that creates a blanket, it creates an ecosystem in itself. And then in 2 years, we have this like self-sustaining forest. That was in Boston, Dennehy Park. Now, people. Without the people, for us, there's nothing. They're an integral part of our pillar. We plant with anyone, anywhere. We plant with communities. We plant with whatever staff. Sometimes we have plantings where people come in their uniforms, ready to go to work, and then we think, oh God, like they will never want to get into the soil, but no problem. They immediately connect together and like find each other on the mound of the forest. So that idea also of like biodiversity and climate change, right? There's 2 conversations that have been really like pulled apart, but they belong together. And through that reconnection of people to nature, we really hope to restore the web of life. Okay, these were just some really fast examples of like where we can plant and how we can plant. Let's look at like case studies where we really can talk about this triangle. Okay, maps. I do love maps. While we were putting this map together, it really dawned on me, like we started with 1 pocket forest in December 2020. So over like a little more than 3 years, we've got 23 pocket forests in London. And when you look at the map, it's like you can see 3 clusters. So it's central London, Barking and Dagenham, and Newham. For each council estate, we will really tailor to what they need. In central London, you'll find unused spaces. Biodiversity deserts will transform them. Barking and Dagenham has an incredibly low tree cover and also low income. We'll create corridors. In Newham, which is a very pioneering council, we work with them on actually delivering their transition plan. And that is something beautiful. It's anchored around decarbonization, well-being, and biodiversity. And so it couldn't be a better fit than working together with them. But if you look at the map, you might say, God, what are these dots? But that's exactly right. It's like urban acupuncture. If you think of it, a bee can travel up to 2 to 3 kilometers. So this becomes like pollinator pathways and biodiversity corridors. And what we'd like to do is more of them, of course. Quickly, the examples. This is off Pond Street, Heritage Forest, 2 years old. Biodiversity desert. What happens between these plane trees? Like, there's not much life there. So we bring the life back. We planted 600 trees. That forest is self-sustaining now. We measure the temperature. So this is something else. When we created SUGi, it was a guiding principle from the start to make all the pocket forests accessible, but also tell the story far into the future. So we've set out KPIs, we created an impact report, and the latest KPI that we introduced is the temperature measurements. And so for us, it's really important to show, we speak about this, oh yeah, these pocket forests, they cool the air, but what does that really mean? And so this was just a warm, hot day, like Daniel went out to measure it, and you can see there's like 17 degrees difference right there. Great example of deep paving, a bit of engineering, South Bank. You must be familiar with it, like that typical brutalist complex. Well, there, it was actually the Hayward Gallery. They reached out and they're like, we want a pocket forest to bring the songbird, to bring the thriving nature, but also like cooling. And so we just planted this one, but it was really complicated because it's above a garage, so we had to engineer the soil, make it extra light, extra fluffy, and take out the canopy layer. Because another thing important with the Miyawaki method, you never plant one type of species. You always have a diverse mix of shrub, substrate, tree, and canopy, so 4 layers. So let's see, in a year, I'm very curious. Now, Barking and Dagenham, I mentioned that. If you see this road, I'm told it's the 7th most polluted road in London, if not the UK. And so creating this corridor, that didn't happen from one day to the other. We really had to create partnerships to really fund us to create this corridor. But today, I mean, people are loving it. It also is one of the very few, this is an important point, I blitzed a bit through all the numbers, but we have an 87% survival rate throughout on all our forests. And the thing is, if you look at this, in Barking and Dagenham, when it was that heat wave 2 years ago in London, the traditional trees planted didn't survive. And so our pocket forest survived. And through that density of planting and that beautiful soil, you create that resilience. You know, nature is complex. And without its complexity, we cannot build resilience. All right, Beirut, from London to Beirut. This is where we started with Adib. That was our first pocket forest, and the beauty here is that in Lebanon, you know, public space has been sort of erased to avoid people coming together. And what we're doing here is to reclaim public space for the people, with the people. So the whole of it has been planted over 8 phases. 5 have been funded by SUGi. 1,200 people came to the planting. We planted in a revolution. That's actually the first picture there. That was during the revolution. It survived the blast. It survived an economic downfall. It's a place where people come together. They watch movies. They do art events. And they have fun. That's the point. Hold on. Now we're in Sao Paulo. The reason why I pull up this image, I mean, again, it was hard to choose. There's so many examples in so many countries. But here, again, low-income neighborhood. And think of it, the Mata Atlantica, one of the most endangered forests. And so what we're doing in schools, these are CUs. They give access to 1,000 to 3,000 children for free education, free recreation. Everything is free. And so we want to create tree cover and wildness for them. And so the top 2 images you see just planted in Miyawaki, and underneath we're integrating food forests. And again, that's that idea of food sovereignty, right? Reconnecting people with nature, with the cashew, the sweet potato, and really having the children be part of it. Now, schools. We have planted in 116 schools. 52,000 children have connected through these plantings. And you know, that goes from the UK, the first image. The US was a great example, by the way. I mean, Berkeley, California, why would you have grass there? Like, it's endless waterings, and now it's a forest. It cools the building, it gives fun to the kids, and it becomes actually they become the stewards of the forest. And then in India, we had a program which is called 50 Schools, 50 Forests. And look at the kids behind it. I mean, you can't even imagine, this is 3 years. All right, we're moving to the US. In the US, we actually weave a lot of indigenous knowledge through our forest. And there we work really hand in glove with our Native American, with that knowledge. So this is a correctional facility. This forest was planted to heal the mind and to reconnect with the inmates. Today, in this forest, Mary Lee, who is a gatherer and a member of the Yakama tribe, told us, we have never over 100 years been able to forage 28 foods. I mean, it goes from the snowberry to the elderberry to the chokecherry to the rose, and they make teas for the elders. I'd love to end on this image. Number 200, our pocket forest to be planted next week. If anyone is in New York, you're welcome. But the thing is that it's really interesting because we launched a project 2 weeks ago, And in 3 days, we had 230 million media impressions on this. We really were like a little bit dumbfounded, like, what happened? And what it shows for us is that the reason why I'm telling you this is that I think people crave rewilding. People crave to be part of a solution. And we really hope to do more of them. So next time you hear about SUGi Pocket Forest, you'll know that there's much more to it than just the trees. We do not just plant trees. We create microbiomes that have a fourfold of impact. And with that comes a myriad of benefits. And to me, I mean, the environmental impact is big, but what stirs me the most is everything that is to do with the human stories. And that is the social and the inspirational. And yeah, and that's it. I thank you. Let's